消耗ばかりしていると暴君が来るぞ。
Okay, so I said I was going to go into the Dredge next since I already did a video on the Onryo, but I forgot that the Onryo came with a survivor, and yeah, I probably need to talk about Yoichi before I move on to the Dredge. Sorry guys, but you'll forgive me for forgetting about Yoichi because there's honestly nothing noteworthy to say about him here. It's clear the developers wanted to add a character from the Ringu movie and just threw in Yoichi without too much consideration. His lore is bare bones basic. His cosmetic is literally a bright yellow coat, which would easily give away your position to the killer. But at least two of his perks are good, so let's get into it. Yoichi was the child with latent psychic powers from the Ringu movies. Yeah, DBD was given permission to age him into adulthood for this game. His mother and father both having died in the film, Yoichi would go on to become a professor at university. Things seemed to be going pretty well for him until some students of his went missing on Izu Oshima, the island where Sadako was from. This triggered a nightmare for Yoichi, who began to remember Sadako and the horrors of that island. But it got worse because the nightmares, when he woke up, suddenly felt more real to him. He began to hear the voice of some dark, primordial thing, not Sadako, but something that could make people disappear, make people vanish, and he just had to know what it was. Obsessed with finding truth, he dove into paranormal research and psychological connections, which all began to label him as a pariah. He was fired from his job for being an eccentric. He didn't give up, though, and poured more and more passion into discovering the truths that had been revealed to him. Truths given to him by a psychic premonition, I guess. Anyway, truths about darkness and voices of a power that makes others disappear. And if it's not Sadako, then what? After much time and energy spent, he discovered a story of 4 vloggers in Scotland going missing while visiting an island lighthouse. Yoichi flew out to Scotland to look into it, chartered a fishing boat, and made his way out into stormy and dangerous waters, only to be tossed into the sea by the wrath of the storm. Clambering onto land, he thought he saw the vision of his father on the lighthouse gallery, and made his way up towards it, only to be swallowed again by the dark sea and dragged to parts unknown. Okay, to put it simply, Yoichi's lore is pretty forgettable, which is unfortunate and a very missed opportunity. The problem I see here is Yoichi's obsession didn't kick in until he had a nightmare as a professor, which I feel seems incredibly forced. The lore doesn't exposit what happened to him as a child or a teenager. Did he care about his parents' deaths? Who raised him after they died? Did he continue to explore his powers, or did he ignore them? Why wasn't he always obsessed with finding answers thanks to what happened to his family? Anyway, but it gets worse. His journey takes him to Scotland. Why? Should it have to do with Sadako? Why is he going to Scotland? Why not go to Izu Oshima? You could have that exact same plot, just keep it tied to Sadako. Like, maybe change it where when he has these nightmares, he keeps seeing Izu Oshima, and he keeps thinking it has something to do with Sadako, but he's scared. He doesn't want to go near it right now. But then later on, when he starts feeling these premonitions more and more and more, and he hears about another disappearance on the island, he decides, well, I gotta face it now. I gotta face my past demons. And so he goes to face those past demons. And maybe while he's there, he sees memorabilia of his father or his mother. Maybe he sees visions of his own childhood. Maybe he sees visions of Sadako's childhood. You know, you could do a lot with that and still tie in Sadako to this guy, but it just feels forced. That's what I'm saying. And then there's the fact that Yoichi just doesn't have any real personality that I can cling to. To be fair, a lot of the survivors don't have a great deal of personality, but I could at least tell something about them. But here, he doesn't really seem to have any, and I think a large part of that is because since he's an existing character in a franchise, and as a child in that franchise he didn't display much of a personality, they just didn't know what to give him. Again, I feel this is a missed opportunity. He's just another obsessed researcher chasing for the truth until it gets them caught. Like Zarina, like Elodie, like Jonah, for Pete's sake. I just feel like you could have made Yoichi anyone. Like, forget Yoichi. Make it some other guy. Make him Jackson Renbaum, a young man from California who's plagued with horrid nightmares of an island in Japan with a girl climbing from a well. Frightened and unable to deal with these dreams, he finally decides to fly to Japan and go to the island and discover the truth of what he's seeing, only to get swept away. But no, wait, that wouldn't work either, because in Yoichi's story, he doesn't even meet Sadako again. He just goes to Scotland and falls into the ocean there instead. This was a butched opportunity. Like, this was a huge missed opportunity to really explore Yoichi as a character. You could have really dived into how he felt about what his parents did. You could have dived into his, like, throughout the lore, we keep seeing him have visions of his father. Let's talk about the relationship with his father. How does he feel about his father? Does he hold resentment over his father because of the father and mother getting separated? What about his mother? He never once talks about his mother in his own lore. What does he feel towards his mom? You know, like, again, missed opportunity, whatever. Anyway, sorry. On to the perks. Let's get on to the perks. That's what y'all care about. So his perks are Boon Dark Theory, Empathic Connection, and Parental Guidance. Boon Dark Theory is possibly one of the most useless boons in the game compared to the others. I'm not saying you can't get some good use out of it. I'm saying compared to the other boons, I don't know why you'd run it. When this boon is activated, it grants a 2% haste status effect for every survivor in its radius, and will persist for up to 4 seconds after leaving the radius. Cool. I guess it's useful in chase situations that run through this boon area, but I would argue that it has a big drawback. The haste amount isn't enough to make a great deal of difference, and if you somehow get downed within the radius of the boon, all you do is run the risk of having the killer discover the boon and put it out. Frankly, there are better boons you could run, but whatever. Next is Empathic Connection. This is a good perk to run for an altruism or healing build, I grant you. If another survivor is injured, they can see your aura from up to 96 meters away, and it increases your healing speed by 30%. And that's actually rather useful. Better than some healing perks we've talked about in the past at least. Hi, Autodidact. Anyway, this one's actually a decent one to run. I do run this one with some of my healing builds, so I recommend it. And then Parental Guidance. This perk is also very helpful, but it needs to be paired up with other perks to make it at max effectiveness. When you stun the killer by any means, your scratch marks and pools of blood are suppressed for 4 seconds. So what I would do is take this perk and combine this with other stun perks like Smash Hit, Head On, or Decisive Strike, and you could potentially ruin the killer's whole day by just stunning them and then vanishing without a trace. It's a great build for bully squads, let me just tell you that. But Parental Guidance, as it is pretty decent, but it works even better if you combine it with one of the other perks I just mentioned. And that is Yoichi Asakawa. And I know, guys, I probably could have gone into way more depth, but I'll be real honest with you, there wasn't a lot to talk about with this. It's very clear what happened is that Dead by Daylight really wanted Sadako, and they wanted to add another character from Sadako's lore with her, threw in Yoichi, but just didn't know what to do with the guy. I feel bad for it because there are some areas you could have explored. You really could have dived into his relationship with his parents. You could have dived into how he feels about his psychic powers, what his psychic powers are capable of doing, how far he actually pursued them, what he's capable of with them, how he felt as a college professor, why he didn't do more research when he was younger, what was his teenage years like, who raised him, what all was he trying to do. There's a lot of questions that I want answered, and the lore didn't answer it. That's what I got to say about that. But anyway, now that we've got that out of the way, now we can move on to the Dredge in his chapter. And until then, guys, I will see you next time in the fog. Take care.
Huh?